helping brands maximize the value of their sponsorships and create more engaging experiences. This is the Market Share Sports Podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the Market Share Sports Podcast. Can't tell you how excited we are about the feedback we've been receiving from folks inside the sports marketing community. Thanks for listening and telling your friends what we're doing here. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or from wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Our guest today is Ben Schlosser. Ben is the Chief Marketing Officer at Richard Childress Racing. He's been with Childress since 2002, and over that time has seen a lot of changes in the sport and in his organization. I think Ben and his team are as good as it gets in NASCAR at account management and business development. They've built an organization designed to serve their sponsors and be a partner in driving their business. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Childress, and we'll talk about New York sports teams. Some of his favorite loves, the Yankees, Rangers, and the Giants. Sit back and listen. I think you'll enjoy this podcast with our friend, Ben Schlosser. All right, Ben. Hey, thanks for being here with us. Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Absolutely.
Hey, one of the things I want to start with, we always ask the same question of our guests when they sit down with us. If you had an opportunity today to have a discussion like this with anybody who's alive today, who would that be?
So we were just talking about Warren Buffett and his portfolio of companies and what he's done, and that I've always been fascinated with what he's built with Berkshire Hathaway and the long-term investments. So that would certainly be one I wouldn't mind sitting down with and picking his brain a little bit on business.
Absolutely. Man remains incredibly sharp, and hopefully about a year later you'd walk away with enough to not be doing this anymore.
He also has an annual report, which is, I think, one of the easiest to read in all of businesses. It's dumbed down for the every man who can understand what he's saying.
That's what we always say, that you can tell the experts are the ones who can tell you what they do and you actually understand when they say it. That's good. Good choice. Hey, you are the Chief Marketing Officer of Richard Childress Racing. You wake up with one of the better jobs in NASCAR every day.
Some days.
Yeah. Tell us about Richard Childress Racing. Give us the overview.
So next year will be our 50th anniversary, which is a pretty special milestone in the sport. And we tell the story about Richard He started selling peanuts and popcorn at Bowman Gray Stadium up in Winston-Salem. And he and a friend flipped a coin, bought a $20 race car, old 47 Plymouth, and flipped a coin to see who could drive it. So that's how it all started. And from there, nearly 50 years later, we're a 5-team outfit with about 440 employees. We're a vertical manufacturing company. We make our own race parts. We build our own engines. We build our own race cars. We have our own graphics operation. We make our own carbon fiber. So we really do it all. And we're a mini manufacturing operation, actually larger than mini, but
yeah. When you talk about the manufacturing parts, I mean, obviously, and you're bigger than just servicing your 5 teams. How many alliances do you guys have? I mean,
so we have 3 alliances, and we provide race cars and engines and technology for several other teams. Yeah. And then we also build engines for other racing series. So all the engines in the Cadillac prototypes for IMSA come out of our engine shop.
Wow. The 50 years all connected to General Motors as well, right?
Yes.
The entire history with Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is pretty incredible.
That is incredible. Well, congratulations on the significant role you've played in the 50 years and the growth. Let's talk about that growth. You're CMO now. How did you get here? Give me your background, how you got into NASCAR.
Yeah, so strange story, but my wife and I were both working in Manhattan. I was actually in the home textile business. She was working at the
Which
NBA.
is a strong recruiting ground for NASCAR.
Yes,
we pull people out in Manhattan all the time.
And our mills were in Kannapolis, so there was a tie. You can see where this is going. So my wife was she was in the licensing business at the NBA, and here we were two recently. I think we'd been married for a year, so newlyweds in some ways. And my company decided to move everybody down to North Carolina, We had about 2 weeks to make a decision. We took the plunge, and she left a great job at the NBA and was hired by NASCAR to build their licensing business from scratch. Back then, NASCAR's marketing operation was 4 of them in Huntersville, North Carolina. There was no New York office, there was no LA office, there was no Charlotte office. Wow. And so she started there, and then my company was acquired, and I left that business in 97, 98 and went to go work for an agency called Cotter Group that did a lot of work in the sport, and it was a great training ground. A lot of people still in the sport, but very client-focused, and spent 3 years there, and then came to RCR in early 2002, the year after Earnhardt had been killed, at a bit of a crossroads for the organization. So it was an interesting time to come to RCR.
Yeah, absolutely. 2002, how big was the marketing organization you were walking into? You had, or how many teams did they have? Did they have 2 or?
We had just added a third Cup team, and we had 2 Xfinity teams. So actually, we had 5 teams, same as now. But the marketing operation was about 2 people.
Yeah.
And there was very little infrastructure in terms of business development. I was the business development guy. I was largely the sponsor services guy, along with another gentleman who would come in with me. We had a couple of communications people, but it was lean, and there was very little in terms of there were no materials that had been built. There was no sales deck. So we had to go about building an infrastructure. But Richard knew that, and he allowed us to go build it brick by brick from there.
Was Richard involved in selling a lot? Did he have his hand in? Yeah,
we typically try to use him more as a closer. We'd go work on the front end, and then he just has such a genuine, authentic way about him and his story, which is he likes to say only in America. That really resonated with people.
What's that organization look like today?
So now it's about 18 of us. We have a significant business development team that we've recruited. We have a very experienced partnership marketing team that's mostly come from the agency world. We have a content and communications team, social, digital, etc. So it's we work collaboratively. We were talking earlier. It's we like to think like an agency. We're not an agency, but we think like an agency. A lot of the personnel we've hired have been from either corporate or agency backgrounds, and it's all about doing what's right for the partners.
Talk about I guess brag on your team a little bit here, but also when you say work collaboratively, you have sought to provide that service. You got 18 great people working for you. I don't know all of them. I'll assume they're all great. You got 18 people who are doing great work. But you also have not necessarily brought everything in-house.
Correct.
I know like with your digital stuff, I believe you work closely with NASCAR and their digital team and kind of letting them do what they do great, identifying where the expertise is, kind of letting them do their thing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, for us, we like to say what are we good at, and what where are people like you who are subject matter experts better at it than we are. Mm-hmm. So we have expanded our range, particularly in terms of the social and digital content. Yeah. But as you say, I mean, we're not website experts, so we have somebody who's built and running the back end of our website.
Yeah, cool. What are the goals for that team? When you set out at the beginning of the year, I know number one goal is don't lose a sponsor, but also how do you measure those guys? What are the things you're kind of tracking with them?
Yeah, so we start with what our desired structure is going to be in terms of teams and drivers and funding, and so it's almost like a budgeting model, and where we have sponsorship in place, where the renewals are, and our business development team, it's a 365-day process. As you know, it's not the days of calling somebody up and them cutting you a check the following week or long past. So Those are long cycle times. We always are trying to fill the pipeline. And then our team on the partnership and communication side, we have, in some cases, weekly calls with our partners, scheduled weekly calls. We have either quarterly or semi-annual reviews where we'll benchmark against what those objectives for the program were. And, sometimes we'll adjust if their needs adjust as they have in terms of content and social. We've evolved, where our mix of assets was. That's just it's the change of marketplace. Yeah. So the other things fundamentally changed. It was the back when it was the day of sponsors signed on the dotted line and they were the sponsor for the full season. And now we have multiple primaries plus associates throughout the course of a season. So the complexity of the business has gone way up. It's one reason why it necessitated the change to our structure. But
not to interrupt you, but the complexity of the business, how many sponsors approximately are you tracking now that it takes to run this?
Yeah, so it can be 2 to 6 primaries or more a year. You've got to make it work, and it's a giant jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. And they've got to complement each other too. Yeah.
And I don't know if we said this or if it was before we came on here, but you're tracking approximately 40 sponsors it takes within the organization, right? So everything from parts and pieces,
yes,
sponsors to primaries on Cup cars, Xfinity. It's a lot of folks, a lot of different needs, servicing a lot of good partners. And I would say one of the things that's evidence that we look at and measure is how many of those people leave, right? And you have a lot of long-term relationships in your sponsor base. You guys would be commended for that.
That's really Richard's his ethos in terms of it's easier to keep a partner than to go find a new one, and particularly when you have a blue chip company, you want to maintain that relationship. Yeah. We like that.
You talk about let's talk about winning, because one of the things we haven't hit on yet is you are a race team.
Yep.
Right. Daytona 500 winning race team, obviously. From this year, congratulations. I saw the picture of the rings. It was nice. That was good. That's the second Daytona 500 since you've been with the team, right?
Is it? Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How many times was Earnhardt's win the only other one?
Yeah. So three for the organization. I've been there for 2 of them.
So 50 years of racing, 3 times won the Super Bowl of the sport. It really speaks to how difficult it is to win in this sport, day in, day out, fighting that battle out. How important is winning in the equation of everything you guys are doing? How do you, as you build your organization, discuss how are we creating value if we're performing on the racetrack? Right now, you're probably not performing the way you want to be, but on a day in, day out basis, how do you guys accept the challenge of still delivering value?
So I think it starts with a winning attitude. You can't, we are different from other sports where you have a 50-50 chance of winning, right? If you're playing in a baseball game or a basketball game, one of 2 is going to win. We're racing. There are 40 teams out there on any given Sunday. So you're going to have 39 losers and 1 winner. So the odds are not terribly good. But you got to start with a winning attitude, and that runs from top to bottom, Richard likes to say, whether you're in accounting or in the engine shop or an engineer or in the marketing side, everybody's got a role to play. And then, you try to put yourself in the position to win. For us on our side, we don't make the cars go fast. We do in a way because we bring funding in. We also go find technical partners, some of whom are critical to our operation. We've spent a lot of time going and finding some world leaders in technology to help us on that side. But ultimately for us, it's about helping the partners win. And that's what's important to us. So making sure that if they're in the retail space or the CPG space, that they're getting the play with the consumer and the sell-through. If it's in the commercial space, it's getting the results on their commercial ventures, business to business, customer-focused programs, et cetera.
Talk about that. And the reason I asked the question on that is there was a time, right, where race teams offer you visibility. We're going to compete, and we're going to be great, and you figure it out from there. But I think as you look at an organization that went from 2 people to 18 people, Childress has done a good job of putting that right emphasis on we have to staff up to take care of our partners, to deliver value, because a $2 part could cost us this weekend. It can't be based on visibility, and those days are
yeah. And
I
think the last thing you want as an organization is for somebody to say, I'm leaving because I didn't get serviced. Mm-hmm. Because that's preventable, right? Mm-hmm. You can't totally control the wins and losses. You can't control the macroeconomic environment. You can't control what's going on in some cases with certain companies. We know there are certain sectors that are struggling, but what you can control is what you're doing to support them. Yeah. So if that means us putting some more resources against the program or bringing in third-party resources to support it, then we're going to do it if we need to.
That's awesome. Yeah, good stuff. You touched on it just a second ago. Talk about what's going on where it used to be. Even you look at your portfolio when you started in 2002. You had Goodwrench, consumer-based sponsors. You had Hershey's floating around that time. You had a lot of B2C type sponsors out there right now. If I look at your portfolio today, you got a lot of B2B.
Correct.
And that's happening everywhere in this sport. Talk about just that transition. How is it different?
Yeah, so, if you look at it, I tend to think it's shifted. One of the shift points was when companies like FedEx and UPS came into the sport and started just shifting the optics that this was only a consumer-focused sport. And we started really doing or working on what our messaging was to companies as to how they could use it in the commercial side. And it's not, people like to think about business to business as this simplified, I come in and sponsor RCR, I get business from your other partners. But it's much more than that. So if you look at somebody like a Dow or Grainger or VF, these are companies that have used it with their customers to gain incremental business. And, on any given weekend, Dow is using one of its business units to drive incremental business with a customer. And so those become very easy case studies to capture, and they're measurable. And as you know, Jim, our sport offers an access that no other sport does. We had some of the marketing team from AstraZeneca from Symbicort, it's one of our new sponsors, with us at their first race. And the gentleman kept commenting to me right before the race. He said, I can't believe I'm standing here 5 minutes before the race in Austin, and I'm talking to Austin Dillon. That doesn't happen in the traditional stick and ball world. Yeah. And that's something you can do with your customers. And you can give them those once-in-a-lifetime days of access at the track or with our personalities. Yeah.
There's nothing like taking somebody to the racetrack for the first time and giving them that experience, right? And we always equate it to like being on the you being on the bench with the Yankees. It's like it's that close.
Well, right? And as you know, we host athletes a lot of weekends. We host folks from the baseball world or football world or hockey world, and they're blown away by the fact that a sponsor can be talking to a driver right before the race is about to start. Yeah. That would never happen in their world.
No, it's crazy. And what's crazy is you have to check yourself and remind yourself of that, and don't take it for granted.
Exactly.
It's big time.
We always say that we do this every weekend, but we have to remember that our sponsors have their customers there, and that's their one time. Yeah. So just as if you went to the Masters for the first time, or the Super Bowl for the first time, or the Kentucky Derby for the first time, and that was your incredible one moment. That's what we're doing on any given weekend for their customers.
Yeah. Talk about, I was going to ask this in a different order, but I'll ask it this way. So you talk about that experience and how cool that is. What are you excited about with NASCAR today? What are you seeing that says, hey, we're in a good place? We can look, everybody wants to look, there's all kind of things we can pick apart, right? What are you seeing today that you're excited about?
Well, I think we always like to go back to what is our strength, which is our fan loyalty. And no other sport has the passionate fan loyalty on the consumption side that we do. We also, I think, have a huge opportunity on the content side. We're probably behind some other sports, but when you look at the stories that we have to tell, the access that our sport provides, and just the variety of personalities, there's so much opportunity on the content side and the social side.
What so then the next question is, what are you excited about at RCR? What do people maybe not know that that is positions RCR? You guys are one of the, I don't know how you probably position yourself as top one or two teams in the sport. Obviously, certainly one of the top five. Biggest organization, multi-car. You have a lot to offer, a lot of experience. You know the sport in and out. You got a great client services team. As you're talking to sponsors, what are some of the things you're most excited to tell them about being a part of?
I think we have some phenomenal case studies, and the more we share those case studies, they resonate. We have had probably 6 to 8 serious meetings with sponsors in the past 6 weeks. Most months, if you get 2 meetings, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think our business development team has been really working hard, but they're also getting the stories out there.
Yeah.
And now that doesn't mean those 6 people are signing on the dotted line, but we met with a large company that spends a lot of money in the sports space recently. That they've never played in NASCAR, maybe just at the fringes with some media. And then we walked in, they said, just so you know, we generally don't take these meetings, but you guys piqued our interest with what you talked to us about. Mm-hmm. So that said to us, our messaging was working. Again, we don't know where that will lead, but we don't focus on what everybody else is doing. We don't focus on how many paint schemes, X race team has sold on this car. That's not the way we look at it. Mm-hmm. We focus on the value we're trying to offer and what our story is and why we're different than everybody else.
And what I love is you're crafting that story in a 50-year-old organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, we have this unique mix of heritage, authenticity, but also technology and innovation. When people come see what we do at our facility, the outgoing chairman of Caterpillar last year, as he was retiring, came and spoke to our entire company. And he walked around, he said, I had not realized you guys are like a mini Caterpillar. You have everything on this campus that somebody like Caterpillar does. Wow. Which speaks to just, the technology we're employing. Mm-hmm. So it is I think the other challenge for us in business development, right? It's getting people to come to a race maybe for the first time, and it's getting people to come to our facility and actually see I call it the Days of Thunder curse, right? People think we build cars in barns or we have 3 race cars, yeah. And in actuality we have close to probably 80 to 100 race cars on our campus at any given time.
Yeah.
So you've got to get them to see the story, and then understand how they can use it. Because ultimately, we also like to say we operate at the intersection of business, passion, and sports. And as those 3 things come together, that's our proposition.
I like it. Making notes. We always talk. For us, we say the path to purchase leads through passionate experiences, yeah. And so I like that.
Which I love that quote too.
Yeah, business, passion, and sports operating at the intersection. I like it. It's funny. You mentioned getting to come out to your shop, getting to come out to a race. We're all lazy, right? To some extent about certain things, and it's very easy to for a lot of folks that we talk to who they saw the headline, they saw TV ratings are down.
Yep.
They saw last week that there were only 80,000 people at the race where they could have put 100. And they read the headlines and they want to make assumptions based off the headlines. This sport continues to be, like you said, from an access standpoint, from a fan loyal standpoint. We've got some opportunities with youth. I love the young drivers. I love that you have a couple of them that are coming along. I love that you have Ryan in place there as well for that veteran leadership. I love that. I totally think it's hilarious that the old guys are beating them all right now, but that's just all part of the process. It's the veterans are having their way a little bit, but Austin getting the 500 right out of the box, and some things that are happening there. I think the sport's in a pretty exciting place to be engaged, and I think it'll be interesting to see, as you mentioned, some of these personalities as these guys begin to find theirs on social media and some of the stuff they're doing. Man, how can we get these consumer brands back into CPG brands back into the sport, realizing that we've got great loyal people who are ready to engage with them.
And I think, when you talk again about where the sport's positioned, what other sport can talk about the brand integration that we can? Yeah. And if you think about just how, quote, daring it was for the NBA to go to small jersey patches. That was, and the risk that they faced with their fans. For us, our fans expect those corporate names to be emblazoned on the race cars and on the fire suits and on the merchandise and everywhere. And that's part of the race team. It's part of the passion they have with their favorite drivers or with the sport overall.
And I know that there's just some ways you can argue around this point, but making the decision to put the logo on the uniform was huge. But if you saw last week when LeBron made the decision to go to the Lakers, one of the first stories out was, wow, look at how a genius Wish was to get that logo on the Laker uniform, and look at the extra value it comes. It's like, okay, yeah, now NASCAR's been there.
Right.
And as controversial as that is, that's valuable space, integrating brands into the product mix.
Well, the other thing is, and we have a slide in our deck. They're not referring to the team with the sponsor's name, right? But constantly, and we have posts that we will show people about rooting for Ryan Newman and the 31 Caterpillar team, or go Austin Dillon and the American Ethanol number 3 car this weekend, right? That doesn't happen in other sports because sponsorship is secondary to them, or maybe even tertiary, where they have all their other revenue streams. They have TV and tickets and concessions and all the other pieces. So the sponsorship, they don't, if they have sponsorship, that's somewhat gravy for them. Yeah. For us, it's our lifeblood. We don't operate without it, and the fans know that, so they identify with it.
It's always good when you run the math with folks and they get into the sport and you start telling them how much we win if we win this race this weekend and how much it costs us to be here. And it's kind of like, thank you for your sponsorship. It is the lifeblood.
Yeah, the other thing, for us, we sometimes forget, you were talking about things you take for granted. Some of the sponsorships and the deals that teams do in our sport, which somebody might shrug at, are massive deals in any other business, any other sports business, right? Yeah. So you look at the corporate dollars that are supporting this sport, and I've had this conversation with several media members. While some of those dollars have been cut back, overall, if you look at the amount of corporate dollars that are funding this sport, it dwarfs sponsorship and all those other sports.
Where are you? I don't know if you'll know this or not. Do you have a ballpark where we are with Fortune 500s that are involved in the sport still?
The slide I saw, the data I saw recently, I think it was close to 140 last. Okay. So it was actually up. Yeah. It had been 120, but I think now the new data said close to 140.
I think that's significant. Obviously, that's a lot of big companies who are seeing the value and are seeing it as a valuable spend. I also think, man, if you look at, I'd hate to even try to guess how many sponsors are involved in the sport total. But when you look at, we manage a couple that are relatively small companies that are spending 7, 8 figures they're digging deep because they see the value in what's being delivered.
We did an analysis of our sponsor base last year and going into this year, and I think the total combined, I don't remember how many personnel they represented, but total annual revenues was close to $800 million among our sponsor base. $800 billion.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Well, good job to you guys. Well, you need to hear that from me, but it's obvious. I think your reputation in the sport, obviously, kind of what you guys have built. And again, I look at sponsorships go into RCR. They don't leave very often, unless there's extenuating things that may drive them to make those decisions. They figure out a way to hang around, and credit to you and your team.
Thank you.
Yeah, for that. Before we get off here, I got a few sentences I want you to finish for me. I was going to say, is it true that you made Rick Penn everything he is today? But we won't. I won't make you answer that question.
Let's talk about that Braves-Yankees series.
No.
Is that one of them?
Well, that was we're going to kind of get close to it. I mean, the Braves will be back. I mean, we'll be back around. We'll see you in October.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. I think for all of us who are Braves fans, I'm actually watching more baseball than I have watched in a long time. I'm excited about these young guys.
You should be excited.
They're playing good ball. So, and you got a pretty young team up there in New York now too. So, some good talent. I think that's true, right? They got a lot of young talent.
They're
up
all
there.
yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, so all right, finish the sentence. New York Giants will win how many games this season?
I'm going to be optimistic and say they will win 8 games.
Is it worth asking about the Jets? I know you don't care about them near as much, but
Lord knows, you're. I've
got my number.
What's your number for the Jets?
I think they'll get 8.
You think they'll win 8 games?
I think they'll win 8. I like Todd Bowles. I think.
Well, I don't put that on him, but I think you're awfully optimistic.
I don't know why. I don't know if I hadn't bought into Sam Darnold necessarily, but I just kind of like. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's high.
Yankees will have how many All-Stars? The voting's right now, right?
Well, you talk overall.
I was going to ask you about the World Series. I know you're going to tell me they're going to win the
starters.
World Series this year. Yeah, All-Stars.
Well,
All-Star game next week.
Judge, Severino, maybe one other. I'd say 3.
All right, 3. New York Rangers will win the. Here's what I was going to say. The Rangers, they're going to win the Stanley Cup in your lifetime or your kid's lifetime. Well, wait a minute. They will win the Stanley Cup in how many years away are they?
They're several years away. Sadly, you still have Lundqvist in his prime, and boy, if I ever had a man crush on an athlete, that's who it would be.
That's who it would be.
Woo. That guy is phenomenal, but sadly, he's not going to have much around him. They're taking the Philadelphia 76ers page now, and
keep tanking, just bring in young youth,
and youth. Yeah.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Islanders? And again, like me asking you hockey questions is
this is not what I expected.
This is
today.
way over my head right here.
Not what I expected.
I know so. So the Islanders pick up. Coach from
they picked up Lou Lamoriello, the GM. Yeah.
Okay. But wait a minute, didn't they get the coach who won Stanley Cup?
Oh yeah. Sorry, they got Barry Trotz. Yeah.
They got Barry Trotz.
Yes. But then they lost Tavares, their star center. So.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah. So they lost their version of LeBron to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Does it make you feel good at all? Do you think the Islanders could ever be competitive again, or is it kind of like
they've got to get their arena situation figured out.
Okay.
They're somewhat in search of a permanent home.
Where do they play?
Well, they've been playing in Brooklyn the last few seasons, but yeah.
But that's not preferable.
No, I don't know if that's a permanent situation.
Okay.
I love the fact you're asking me hockey questions.
Yeah, no. Anything else on hockey I need to know about? We were having this discussion yesterday. I'm a Game 7 fan in hockey.
Yeah.
Or watch it live.
Absolutely.
Or watch it live.
So I actually use that analogy a lot. It's funny you bring it up. I get a lot of people whether it's in the Northeast or parts of the country that say, I've never been to a NASCAR race. I don't get it. It's like a bunch of drivers turning left. And I say, have you ever been to a live hockey game? Yes. Okay. Same thing. And so same thing down in these parts where you have a lot of people say, I don't get hockey. I've seen it on TV. I don't understand it. I said, have you ever been to a live game? No. I said, go to a live game and you will be hooked. And I think anybody I've ever talked to who went to a live hockey game, didn't walk away, a live NHL game, didn't walk away going, okay, that's incredible. So there are some parallels there in terms of just the understanding of the speed and the power and the in-venue experience of the sports.
So my comparison on that, 2 stories on it, my comparison that I always use is baseball.
Yeah. Baseball
is 15 minutes of action over a 3-hour period. But if you know what's going on,
correct,
you know the scenarios, you know what could happen if it's hit here, what does the runner do if he's here, should he hold him on, where's the next pitch, he was low and outside, next time, where's it coming, this one. The more you understand about that, it's a great game.
Oh, so, yeah, I mean,
the car's 200 pounds lighter at the end of a
right.
fuel run, and how's that going to change?
Understanding the strategy definitely changes your view. I think baseball and baseball's challenge is the speed of play, right? So
yes.
If you're 12 years old, you want to watch a 4-hour baseball game, and I know Manfred's trying to address it, and I think he's absolutely correct, because I'm a longtime baseball fan, but I don't want to watch a 4-hour baseball game.
Should I ask about a 3.5-hour NASCAR race?
You have action going on. My point, what's made the baseball games longer is guys stepping out of the box, adjusting their gloves. I think it was Mike Hargrove, wasn't it? It was the human rain. Was it Mike Hargrove? Was the human rain delay they called him?
Yeah.
And that used to he was the anomaly back then. Now it's every single batter's like that. So
it is crazy. One other story on hockey. Back to hockey. The first hockey game I ever saw was in Russia. It was 1994.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was the Old Red Army team playing their crosstown. It was in Moscow. The Old Red Army team was playing their crosstown rival, Cheshka, I think is how they pronounced it. I had no idea how good these guys were. I paid 10 times face value for a ticket. I think it was $3 is what I paid for the ticket. And we go in, and I was blown away.
That would be cool to see the Red Army team.
Yeah. It was phenomenal.
That was the dream team of hockey right there.
Yeah, and I had no idea what I was watching, except that I walked out of there going, wow, this is a lot better live.
Yeah.
And I will say they did all the same songs and chants and that kind of thing, but they didn't know where to yell. So it'd be like, dun, 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 and like 5 of us went, yeah, and nobody else said anything. You know
what I think is cool about any of those sporting events, and I mean, whether it's basketball or hockey or baseball or NASCAR, golf, if you've played one of them in any way, shape, or form, you so appreciate what these guys do. I mean, when you go see what these golfers do, it's incredible. And it's the same thing when I watch a hockey game, having played, or soccer, but same thing with racing. I mean, what those guys do on a Sunday, getting in a car. By the way, the cars were 150 degrees inside. Our driver on Saturday, so this was the shorter race in the Xfinity Series, Daniel Hemrick, he lost 9 pounds during the race on Saturday. It was, I mean, it's grueling what these guys do, and it's grueling not just physically, it's grueling mentally.
Yeah.
They've got to concentrate for that long, while every car around them is also going 180, 200 miles an hour.
What'd you think? I don't know if you even watched it, if you were at the track, if you've been able to see. I'm excited about NBC taking over the broadcast second half of the year.
Slide job!
They did.
Sorry, I can't do a good Dale Earnhardt imitation.
That was pretty good. It was there. I appreciate it. I mean, it was just that fact. In Kurt Busch's in-car camera, they put a thermometer in there, 153 degrees. Yeah. It was just like, holy smoke. So just the whole mental aspect of it, I think, is not talked about near enough. Those guys having to be alert.
That and the and the training and preparation they do leading up to it. I think I don't think we tell that story enough. Mm-hmm. What I see, our drivers do to train and our pit crews do to train and prepare. Mm-hmm. It's impressive. You wouldn't be claiming these guys weren't athletes if you saw what they did during the week to prep.
Yeah, and Cool. So, all right, last question. I'll let you get out of here. Best barbecue in Lexington, North Carolina is?
I would say most people would say Lexington barbecue, which is locally known as Monk's. There are also a couple other little joints. One called Speedy's, which is Speedy, by the way. So I try not.
I was wondering if you go out on a limb.
Barbecue.
You don't need to do. Okay. You just don't need to eat barbecue.
No, I try not to eat too much. It's
okay.
Otherwise, I don't think my heart would be so good.
All right. Well, at least you're up there all the time. I knew you'd have a
and
couple of good
by the way,
recommendations.
I think I like the Hush Puppies even better than the barbecue itself. So,
what about Red Slaw or White Slaw?
I love Red Slaw.
Do you?
Yeah, which some people don't care for, and despite my New York roots, I love the Red Slaw.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey man, this has been fun. Thank you for making some time to be with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate all you guys are doing.
Thanks.
This has been the Market Share Sports Podcast, dedicated to helping brands maximize their sponsorships and create more engaging experiences. Visit us at marketsharesports.com to learn more about our work, catch up on past episodes, and sign up for our newsletter. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for joining us.